Hey friends, my name is Jackson and welcome back to my channel, Gender Not Found. And today I'm doing video 150 after like 2 years, I think, about of doing this channel. I'm finally on video 150. I was hoping to do 100 this year, but that's not gonna happen. So here I am, video 150, and I decided to do my top 12 characters, my top 12 fictional characters with autism. So I wanted to talk about that number. So you guys know top 10 lists are like all over the place, but I kind of wanted to do like my own number. I kind of wanted to pick a number that isn't already being used. 10 is already taken, 20 is already taken, 25 is definitely already taken. I mean, I am going to do top 25 things at some point, but for the most part, I'm using my own number, which is 12. And, anyway, a lot of numbers are already taken, and Blaze the movie fan has top 15, so I didn't want to do that either. So I decided on 12 because, well, religion is like a big part of my life, and God had 12 disciples, and also, there were 12 people at the Last Supper. Well, also Jesus, but anyway, you guys know what I mean. So that's why I'm doing top 12. So I think it was like a really, really long time ago, like maybe 7 or 8 years ago, that I did my top 10 fictional characters with autism. And thing is, since then, there's been a lot more fictional characters with autism or characters who have been headcanon to have autism. So I decided to do like an update list. Originally I was gonna do a part two, but then I decided to do this. So this is kind of like an updated list, basically, from that, except there's gonna be 12 instead of 10 this time. But if you guys haven't seen the top 10 fictional characters with autism, you should watch it. It's on my old channel, it's on my old channel, Vanellope's Corner, so if you guys want to watch it, you can go watch it. It's like really old and outdated. Like it's it was a long time ago, and like even just watching that video, I could see like everything was so different, and like I can just see how I've improved on YouTube and everything's like changed. Like things are so different now. I was probably like, I don't know, 20 or 21 or something when I did that video, but that was a really, really long time ago. I'm not sure exactly how long ago, because if you guys remember, I kind of deleted all the old videos from my channel and re-uploaded them. So it says it was only a couple of years ago, but it was way longer than that. Anyway, so so anyway, this is essentially an updated list, and I'm gonna put pictures of the characters as I go along. This video is gonna take a while to edit, so I'm giving myself a few extra days. I know I'm recording this on Tuesday, but it'll probably be up on Saturday, or maybe sooner if I can get it up sooner, but probably Saturday. Anyway, so I'm giving myself a few days to edit it and stuff. So anyway, I just wanted to. I have the list. I had to write down these characters, so I'm gonna kind of go through and talk about and mention the characters and like talk about them a little bit and stuff. So, and I also wanted to say that in my in my old video, I was like, oh, they're smart, so they must have autism. I mean, that wasn't what I was meaning to say, but that's kind of how it came across. So I just wanted to say that just because someone's super smart doesn't mean they have autism, and just because they have autism doesn't mean they're gonna be super smart. Like, not everyone has the savant type. Being a savant is a thing, especially with autism, but like, it's not just like a built-in symptom of having autism. Like, it's different. Anyway, so oh my god, yeah, can't stop yawning. I'm gonna be yawning throughout the video. That's just what happens. Anyway, so I'm gonna go through the honorable mentions first. So, first of all, Star from Star versus the Forces of Evil. She's kind of like crazy and super enthusiastic, and she kind of has her own stuff that she just goes off, and she's kind of like all over the place. She's really messy. She's okay. Anyway, she's it's the Pearl from Steven Universe. She's like really organized and she likes routine and she does everything a certain way and yeah. And then Morty from Rick and Morty. I love that show actually. Rick and Morty was one of my favorite shows. I haven't watched it in a while though. Like I haven't watched I think past season 3. I can't remember how far I got into season 3. I think I got about halfway into season 3. But I haven't watched for a while and I'm meaning to catch up. I have a lot of shows that I've been meaning to catch up on. Like I haven't even watched the last season of My Little Pony yet. It's pretty crazy. Um Morty from Rick and Morty. Oh yeah, there are a few rules before I start before so first of all, I can only pick one character from each um fandom and these are characters, some of these characters have autism, and other ones of these characters just like are headcanons have autism. Like they don't all have autism, but if some people think they have autism, I'm gonna include them on the list anyway. I mean, it was hard to find 12 characters who all had autism that I know of because the other rule is that I have to be familiar with the media that they're in and I have to have watched at least one episode that the character is in. So like if they're a side character, I have to have seen at least one episode that they're in. Like if they're a secondary character or if they're not a main character of the show, then I have to have watched at least one episode that they're in or one episode that they're prominently featured in because some of these characters in some episodes they can just be like background characters or like not important to the story, but they have to be important to the story to count towards this list and I have to have seen that episode or been familiar with the media that they're in and been familiar with that character. So given all of that, it was pretty hard to pick and choose. Anyway, so yeah, Morty from Rick and Morty, he's like a really nervous kid and he stutters a lot and he's really I mean his there was an episode where his dark side came out and stuff. Chidi from The Good Place, he's like really into books and philosophy. I'd say his special interest is philosophy if I had to go with that. And yeah, basically he's just like really into uh, uh, Phoebe from Friends. I mean, I don't think I really have to explain that one. She's like really weird and eccentric and crazy and a lot of stuff. Lisa Simpson, well, she's the smartest of all the Simpsons. Like I said, that's not like synonymous with autism. Just because you're really smart, you don't all of a sudden have an autism diagnosis, or just because you have autism, it doesn't mean you're going to be really smart. But essentially, it's I'm not saying that it's a characteristic of her autism. I'm just saying that it's a characteristic, and she's never actually been diagnosed with autism, so essentially, yeah, but I'm just saying she's super smart. That's a characteristic of Lisa, not a characteristic of her potential autism. And so, next up is the Belchers from Bob's Burgers. I know this is technically cheating. I said one character per fandom, but like, someone mentioned that the entire Belcher family from Bob's Burgers has autism, and I thought, maybe. In my last list, I mentioned Morty from Rick and Morty previously, Lisa Simpson, and I also mentioned Tina Belcher from Bob's Burgers, but I can also see how the entire family might have autism. Um, Rowley Jefferson from Diary of a Wimpy Kid. He's like really childish, which I'm not saying like all people with autism are like that, but they tend to have a tilt towards the childish, like, uh, and he's like really weird, and I mean, I'm not saying that weird is bad. Like, okay. Anyway, Mumble from Happy Feet. This kid literally dances to the beat of his own drum. Literally. The movie's about how he dances when all the other penguins sing. So, yeah, he's. Someone mentioned that he might have autism, and I don't know. Maybe. Kimmy Schmidt from The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. She's in my honorable mentions. If she's in my honorable mentions because I don't I'm not completely sure that I agree with this. I think it's because of the trauma that she's kind of like childish and held back in life. I don't know. She doesn't have a lot of symptoms that I see associated with autism. Rather, she has symptoms that I see associated with childhood trauma and kind of being held back, like mentally as a person. You know, I don't know. Some of these characters it's hard to explain without reading directly from an article about why they have autism, and most of them just don't have an article about why they have autism. Like, I don't know how to explain it, so whatever. But I tend to lean towards the side of that she has trauma, and that's what made her, like, made her growth stunted rather than having autism. Also, she has a lot of close friends that I feel like would have pointed her out. And she also has, the other thing is, she also has a therapist that I think would have told her if she had autism by now. So I tend to lean towards, more towards that she has it's just from her trauma, and that's why her growth is stunted. That's why her mental growth is stunted rather than having autism. But, I guess she has some autism symptoms, but they could also just be symptoms of like acting like a child and stunted growth and stuff. So that's why she's not on if I agreed with the autism diagnosis, she'd be on my top 12 for sure and not just in my honorable mentions. Anyway, but I didn't feel like the diagnosis was prominent enough or the idea of the diagnosis was prominent enough. I didn't exactly agree with that, and I didn't want to bump one of the other characters for a character that I don't exactly agree with the autism diagnosis for this one, or with the headcanon of them having autism. And my last honorable mention is going to be Princess Bubblegum from Adventure Time. And if you'd seen Adventure Time, again, some of these characters, it's just hard to explain without reading from a wiki page or something. Anyway, now on to my top 12, and a lot of these characters do in fact have a literal actual diagnosis of autism, so we're gonna get into that. Hang on. We're gonna get into that, and I'll let you know which ones have an actual diagnosis and which ones are just headcanoned to have autism. So, number 12 is Carl from Arthur. And he was only in one episode, at least that I know of, where he's autistic and he already has the diagnosis. So, this is an actual diagnosed character that has autism. It's not just a headcanon. So, I really thought that was awesome. And I don't really watch Arthur anymore. I watch a few episodes here. Like I specifically sought out this episode because I heard about it and I thought that it would be cool to watch the episode to like see what was up. So I watched the episode with Carl, and that's why I say he's only been in one episode that I know of. He might have been in more episodes, but I don't make it a point to just watch Arthur. So I kind of just like don't know if he's been in any other episodes where it's prominent or whatever, where he's a character. Number 11 is Marcy from Amphibia. So she's not actually diagnosed. She's headcanon to have autism, and she is like this. I'd say that the world of Amphibia was her special interest, along with video games in the human world as well. Just because if like a lot of this comes from the show, so if I'm explaining something, just know it comes from the show, and you understand it more if you watch the show. Anyway, so, and yeah, she's not in every single episode, like she's not at all in season 1, and I have not watched season 3 of Amphibia either, so it might be more prominent, but I have watched season 2, which mostly is a lot about Marcy and and getting back together and like reconnecting their friendship and stuff. Number 10 is Caleb from Big Mouth, and he's not really diagnosed with autism, but it's pretty obvious that he has it. Um, yeah, like I don't really have explanations set up for these characters. Maybe I should have done that before I made the video. Anyway, Ice Bear from We Bear Bears. I'm gonna start by saying this guy doesn't talk a lot. And that was a lot of what made me, because I know I mentioned Max from Max and Ruby in my other list, and I mentioned that Max doesn't really like talk a lot, and he doesn't really have a very like varied vocabulary, I guess you would say. Like he only says a couple of words. Like maybe if you're lucky, he says one word in the entire episode. So yeah, Ice Bear is a lot of the same. He doesn't really talk a lot, but his special interest seems to be cooking and stuff. Stan from South Park actually has a diagnosis of autism. Again, there were two episodes, and I did talk about him in my other video, and yeah, there were two episodes completely dedicated to it. Asperger's and You Are Getting Old. And so yeah, he has an actual diagnosis. Number 7 is Dan from Dan Versus. And so Dan Versus is this show that I really love. And Dan is like the main character. I actually have a stuffed animal of him too, like a plushie. So Dan is like really bent on getting revenge, and he can't sleep until his plan works out and stuff. Like he just wants to get revenge all the time. He seems like hyper focused on revenge whenever it comes into his mind and stuff like that. So there's that. Number 6, Max from Max and Ruby. Like I mentioned, he doesn't talk a lot. He only says a few words. Like his vocabulary is very limited, and I think that he has autism even if he doesn't have a diagnosis. I haven't seen the show in a really long time, and I haven't really I don't really watch the new seasons. Like I don't really go looking for that stuff and like watching it. So maybe he has an actual diagnosis. I don't know. For now he's just headcanoned, as far as I know, to have an autism diagnosis. Wendy from, and number 5 is Wendy from Please Stand By. So Please Stand By is a movie that's specifically about this autistic girl named Wendy. I forget her last name, but she like goes on an adventure to deliver her Star Trek script, and she actually has a diagnosis. Like she's in, the whole movie is about that she's in this facility for like special needs people, special needs adults, and she wants to go and deliver her Star Trek script, but she doesn't get to send it in by the deadline, so she like goes to deliver it in person apparently. And it's been a few years since I've seen this movie, but that's basically the plot of the movie. Just her going on this adventure to deliver her Star Trek script because I guess Star Trek is her special interest. That's the whole point of the movie. Anyway, it's really awesome and I would recommend watching it. I don't really remember much of the details, which is fine because I'm not going to give spoilers anyway, but I recommend you guys should go watch it if you want to see that kind of stuff. Number 4, BB from the Proud Family. This is actually something I recently became aware of. I found out through, I think, another person's YouTube video. I don't really remember how or why, but I found out somehow that BB is actually diagnosed with autism. So then the other day, I looked up the episode and I went and actually watched it. And I gotta admit, I when the Proud Family reboot first came out, I literally watched one episode and I didn't really like it, so I decided that I wasn't going to continue watching it. And I just decided that I just decided that I wasn't going to continue watching it because I wasn't super into it. But if there's anyone who shouldn't judge a show just by one episode, it's like me, because like BoJack Horseman, it takes a while to get really, really good, so I shouldn't be judging a show by just one episode. And usually I'll watch more of a show to see if it's any good. And kind of Um, there were a lot of shows where I watched the first episode and I'm immediately hooked. Anyway, but I think the after this episode that I'm gonna give the Proud Family reunion not reunion, revival, another chance. Like, essentially, The Proud Family was this show that I loved when I was a kid, and I just wasn't that into the revival after watching one episode, so I decided not to continue watching it. But I went specifically looking for this episode because I heard somewhere else that BB was diagnosed with autism now. I don't remember. I think it was when I was doing research for this video actually that I found that out. And it was like 2 or 3 days ago that I actually watched the episode. Like, I literally went looking for it and I watched it and it was awesome. So the episode is literally just called BB. And it's actually the second to last episode of the last season that came out. So, as far as what they're gonna do with it in the future, I don't really know, but they did say that they're gonna keep it an important part of the show, which is great because I appreciate that it's not just a one-off thing, and then, status quo is God or whatever. Like, they're just gonna go back and forget about it because that would make me lose a lot of respect for the show because I do have a lot of respect for the way that they handled this episode. I don't really want to give a lot away, but essentially BB gets diagnosed with autism and it goes through all of the family's reactions and they all have like different reactions to it and it's just like about all of them learning to figure it out and, do what's best for the kid and stuff like that. Like they see a psychologist and then the psychologist diagnoses him with autism and tries to get the family to enroll the kid in their school. And yeah, it's basically that's the episode, just going through the family's reactions and stuff. And they handle this with so much care, like the way that she explains the diagnosis and stuff like that. It's amazing. I'm so happy they did something like this. I I'm definitely giving this revival another shot. As far as what they do with it, it remains to be seen because there was only one episode after that that's out right now. So, as far as season 3, apparently they're going to keep it important, so I'm super glad that they're doing that. So, yes, BB has an actual diagnosis of autism and is not just headcanon to have autism. Number 3, Sam from Atypical. And this is another basically the whole episode BB revolved around BB's diagnosis of autism. Wendy revolves around the girl who has autism. And that's the whole plot of Atypical. It's just this kid who has autism, like preparing for college, trying to find a girlfriend, handling his autism, dealing with his family, all that kinds of stuff. Just living his life and coming of age as he lives with autism. That's basically what it is. Like at the beginning of the show, he's like 17 or 18, getting ready to graduate high school, and it goes through all kinds of like challenges that he faces as he's dealing with his autism. And I don't always like the way that they portray him. Like some of them, some of the ways that they portray him can be kind of tricky, like uh, it's kind of frustrating when they have him, for example, grab a girl's ponytail when she's sitting in front of him, because that's something that I feel like he should know not to do, especially since he's like so high up on the spectrum. Like he probably has like level 1 autism. Like I sorry if I'm offending anyone by saying that. I don't know all the terms or whatever, and whatever. I don't know, whatever. I'm probably gonna say something wrong. I don't care. Anyway, but I'm sorry if I offended you, and whatever. I don't really know how to explain it otherwise. But anyway, or like when he like literally breaks into his therapist's house. That was really hard to watch, and it's like, yeah, he should know not to do this. And honestly, a lot of it falls on the parents. I'm not saying that Sam isn't responsible for his own actions, he absolutely is, but also his parents should teach him better to know not to do that. And it's like, why didn't he's 18 and he should know not to just break into someone's house and like it's and like the thing that is is the most hard to deal with is that Sam is like this big rule follower, but there's like a very clear law that says you shouldn't break into people's houses, but Sam does it anyway. Um, Also, Sam has a pet turtle, which kind of comes up a lot. Like, obviously his special interest is penguins, but he's also super into like reptiles and turtles. And he has a pet turtle, and I love that turtle. Number two, Rainbow Dash from MLP. And she doesn't actually have a diagnosis of autism. She's just an autism coded character. That's what they're called. Autism coded. So, like, meant to. Anyway, um, so obviously, I'm talking about the Rainbow Dash from Generation 4 MLP, by the way. There's, like, a bunch of other, um, it's a generational thing, apparently. But yeah, G4 is the one that I'm super into and the one that I love. And I actually, there were several more characters that people were saying might have autism, but I chose to put Rainbow Dash on the list because she's my favorite. And I did say only one character per fandom. I know the Bob's Burgers family was technically a cop out. It was technically breaking the rules, but yeah. But yeah, so I didn't put any of the other characters on here because Rainbow Dash just happens to be my favorite. I also talked about her in my other video about my favorite characters with autism. Um, and I mentioned a lot of stuff like how people are making videos and posts about how she doesn't deserve her element and it's not true and she just has a hard time embracing it. And the other thing is that like she's supposed to, the whole point is to make the characters flawed at the beginning so they can grow over the course of the show, and she has indeed grown quite a lot. I'd say she's probably grown the most out of the characters. I haven't seen the last season yet, but I have seen pretty much every other single episode, and yeah, she's grown like an immense amount. I think she's grown the most out of all of the characters. Like, they all grow. The point is that they're all flawed at the beginning so that they can improve over the course of the show. Like, if they're just perfect and they're super tied to their element at the beginning, then it's not important. There's no point in investing yourself because there's no point in, like, there's no character growth. There's nothing to invest in. But essentially, yeah, Rainbow Dash has a hard time embracing her element, and someone even made like a headcanon post about how um her her autism mainly manifests itself in her social skills, and her friends are all very happy to help her learn them. And like, there's an episode about how she learns differently. Like, there's an entire episode about how she can't learn in a classroom, but when she's out flying, she notices like everything that's on the ground. So her friend set up like everything that she needs for the test on the ground and fly her over so that she can like digest that information, and she like immediately gets it all. Like, she sees all the things while she's flying, and then she is immediately able to digest that information, and then she aces the test. So I love that. It Because yeah, a lot of people with autism need a little extra help or like have trouble in school. Like, I definitely benefited from being in New Path and having like I think it's called a 404 plan or something, basically like a specialized plan with the teachers. So like, I was allowed to listen to my headphones, I was allowed to like take breaks, and I was allowed to like work on my book sometimes. Also, Rainbow Dash has a pet tortoise named Tank, which I love. Because at the beginning, she doesn't really care about the tortoise. They're doing like this race with the animals to see which animal is the best for Rainbow Dash to have as a pet, even though that's totally not the point of having a pet. But that's the episode. I really dislike that episode, by the way. But anyway, at the end, Rainbow Dash goes with the tortoise, and anyway, she like really loves her pet tortoise. Like, there's a cute little thing in one of the episodes where she like glances around to see if her friends are watching her, and then she like rubs noses with her tortoise in like that cute sweet little way, like an affectionate little way. um, and she clearly loves her tortoise throughout the course of the episodes. Like, there's an episode where Tank's gonna go into hibernation for winter, and Rainbow's like really upset about it, and she literally tries to stop winter. And that's also another point of her impulses taking over, where she's like, well, I'm gonna go to the extreme to make something happen that I want, which is just what I can't speak for everyone with autism, but that's what I'm like. I know that's what I'm like. Yeah, so I love that. Also, I wonder if it's a coincidence if Sam has a pet turtle and Rainbow Dash has a pet tortoise. And number one is Evan from Good Trouble. And at first, I wasn't too sure if he was like autism coded or not, but then he revealed that he actually has a diagnosis. So, if you guys don't know what Good Trouble is, there's this awesome show that I love called The Fosters, which is about a bunch of like foster, adopted, and birth kids growing up in the same house with their two moms. And then um Good Trouble is like a spin-off of the two girls going off and like getting jobs and living together and doing their adult stuff in their 20s. And anyway, there's a character called Evan who is the boss at Mariana's company, and essentially, yeah, he has Asperger's. That was the point. Well, that was what it was called at the time, but level 1 autism, I guess it's called now, even though I'm always going to call it Asperger's because that's what it was called when I was diagnosed, and I like that diagnosis, and that's what I'm calling it. It's special to me. So if I offend you, well, I don't really care. I'm allowed to call it Asperger's, and I feel like an autistic person calling it Asperger's is the same way as a black person calling another black person the N word. I don't know. I probably just offended someone by saying that, but eh. Anyway, so Evan is essentially he reveals later that he has a diagnosis of Asperger's and all of his autistic traits and stuff. Like there's an episode where Mariana goes over to his house and she like walks on the ground with her bare feet, and Evan doesn't like that. And then she's like moving stuff around in the fridge, like she'll take something out of the fridge to look for food and then she'll put it back somewhere completely different. And then Evan explains to her, he's like, oh, you can't, please don't walk on the floor with your bare feet. I need to be in control of things at home. Please don't take things out of the fridge and put them back in a completely different spot, which I totally get. Like, please don't do that. Please don't do this. Because he needs to have complete control over things at home. Because, like, there's so much he can't control at work, which is yeah, which is so awesome, which is so the way that things go when you're autistic. Like, there is so much you can't control out there when you're just in the world, like, doing your thing. Like, so the best you can do is try and control your surroundings at home. And yeah, I have a very clear, important set of rules at home that I go by. And like, even when I was living with my mom, I would try and get her to understand I'm autistic and I need things a certain way, and we would talk about it and go through it and stuff. But now that I'm like living on my own, I have way more control over things on my own, over things in my home and just in my general area and stuff. So I really love that. I really appreciate that. And yeah, it's really great. And one of the biggest things with my autism, I'm going to close this. One of the biggest things with my autism is definitely my stuffed animals that I have, and they're my kids essentially. They're literally my kids. They're my family. And like they all have their own voices, they all have their own personalities. I love them so much. They all struggle with stuff, and yeah, that's basically how it goes. That's my entire family situation. I love that. And some people might think it's weird, but like, I'm not hurting anyone by doing it, and honestly, I don't really care what y'all think. So, if you think it's weird, I don't care. I'm gonna do it anyway. Like, I don't understand why it's so, like, it's such a it's so looked down upon to like walk around with a stuffed animal as an adult. It's like the dumbest thing ever. Like, literally, how am I hurting you by carrying a doll around? I'm not at all, so shut up. Anyway, so I just wanted to go through that, and so I had a really great time. That was fun. And uh I kind of maybe I'll do like an updated version of this video like when I'm feeling better from my issues because I'm stuttering a lot right now when got I couldn't really do the list properly or at least as well as I wanted to anyway. But in the meantime, I love each and every one of you guys. Please don't forget to always be yourself. You are valid. Don't forget to be good to yourself and to others. And I love each and every one of you guys. I will see you in the next video. Wait, no, I already said that. Okay, hang on. I love each and every one of you guys. Please don't forget to always be yourself. You are valid. Don't forget to be good to yourself and to others. And I will see all you guys in the next video. And I think the next video is gonna be the Reddit video, or perhaps some kind of like reading fiction video or something. Okay, see you guys in the next video. Bye.